Hi, sorry for the delay. I had a problem with the connection.
Nice to see you, Brando. Where are you?
I'm in my office in Brussels.
Oh, you're in Brussels. Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Welcome to you. You missed the disco music that we had playing before the session. So we've got lots of disco energy, and I hope you've got some disco energy to bring in too. Brando, you know us, you know Generation Code really well. We're also very lucky to have you as the co-chair of our MEP Library Lovers group, which has over 60 members of European Parliament in it. This is we get a chance to grill the MEP session and ask you lots of impossible questions about public libraries, Europe, what you can do for us, what we can do for you. We've sent you some briefing notes just to give you some sort of thoughts about what you could open with. I know that we don't have a huge amount of time, so I'm going to hand over to you, and I'm going to encourage everybody who's here to put your questions in the chat. If there's something that Brando says that you find interesting, provocative, helpful, unhelpful, don't hesitate to say. Brando's a great supporter of libraries and has been really fantastic for us. And, you know, is also having a special role in a special delegation on artificial intelligence at the moment as well, which I think is quite interesting for some of the work. Brando, we've been talking a lot over the last few days of the Netflix documentary Social Dilemma, and how suddenly people's understanding of algorithms and social media is changing. And I think we want to talk within libraries about how that's working. So over to you, Brando, and then I'm going to be commenting actively on the chat as you go. So floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity and for your work on these topics. I've been happy to welcome some people from our libraries network in the past years, physically in the Parliament, but this time it's been obviously not possible, and we are doing it this way. But I hope all the activities in these days of Generation Code are of interest for you and for all the people that are participating. In these days, I will introduce a few topics, then we can have an exchange. In these days, we are working on negotiation of the new MFF, the new multi-annual financial framework, the new budget of the EU, and we are looking at the how we can finalize the Next Generation EU program, that is this new instrument of financing through a common debt of the European Union, new national programs that can pursue some priorities for the recovery that are some of them that are very well known as an ambition of the EU today: the ecological transition, the digital transition, the inclusion of marginalized groups, and also of, for example, of women in the job market, and of young people that are the ones that, for obvious reason, will for more time face the consequences of, unfortunately, years of subsequent crises that we have been facing. So we are fighting for, as Parliament, for an adequate budget of the EU that will finance European programs. Some of them are very important also for all your work. For example, the issue of skills. Let's think of the digital transformation and the need for new skills, with the new skills agenda that the EU is promoting and trying to channel its resources in this direction. And on the other hand, we are fighting that the Next Generation EU that will finance national recovery plans will be oriented towards some real changes for addressing also imbalances that were already there before the crisis, that were not created with the corona virus, but were already there. Because when we talk about ecological transition, digital innovation, inclusion of excluded groups, it's not something that started with corona. So it's something that we need to do now, and based on existing problems. So, I mean, looking at what I'm dealing with more specifically, personally, I'm now the rapporteur for my political group of the ESF Plus. That is the European Social Fund Plus, that will be used by each territory, each region of our union to support social inclusion, training, skills, strengthening professional profiles, also for new jobs that will be needed also in your work, in your activity in the libraries. For sure, again, we need to strengthen the digital agenda efforts, but also it will be important to ensure education and training for people that maybe interrupted their studies, their training, people that didn't complete them. And this is an objective of the skills agenda. And obviously, again, the libraries need to be involved in this, that everyone can reach a certain level of language, digital, soft, social, and informal skills. This is something that is a very clear objective. Also, when we look at the reform of youth-oriented programs, for example, the youth guarantee on which we are working, that is regards opportunities, supportable opportunities for first occupation for young people. This again can be part also of something dealing with regarding your sector, and we want more certainty and more control, that the European money is used only for opportunities that can provide development of skills, social rights, and banning any unpaid internships that we think should not be there anymore in our union. It will be very important for you also what we decide on some digital, very sensitive files. I want to mention them. One is the Digital Services Act, on which we are negotiating a lot. That's an issue that is very complicated, because it regards the reform of existing legislation that is very old. In some cases, even when we look at the e-commerce, it's 20 years old, that deals with the relation that we have with the internet platforms, with the internet commerce, with any economic activity on the internet. And we are reforming that to update it to the new challenges, but also we are looking on new balances on the content, on the spreading of it, on the intellectual property rights, on the role of the platforms. This is a very big topic. You know, for some of you that follow more closely these issues know that also last mandate of the Parliament, we have been working a lot on the copyright directive, which was also dealing partly on these topics. Now the Digital Services Act is again dealing on these issues. And also on artificial intelligence, which was mentioned. I'm part of the AIDA committee, the new special committee on artificial intelligence. We are working on many angles of the topic, which are not just the most obvious ones, but also the ones regarding, again, skills, the international cooperation, environment, gender equality, and also the most obvious ones regarding fundamental rights, privacy, economic development, labor impact, etc. And again, on how we interact with our with knowledge that we have, with culture, with cultural products that are also part of your work. Obviously, the impact of artificial intelligence will be important, and we will need to look into it. We are doing it, and we are, in fact, at the start of this work, because the idea is that by the end of next year, we will have some complete positioning from the Parliament so that we can be ready to engage with the European Commission and with the member states, negotiating regulation on such an important topic, which will be huge. I think sometimes it's difficult to fully grasp the impact of the development of AI in our future. And so it's important to be prepared, to work, to study. I think institutions need to preempt issues and try to support development of important technologies, but also to, at the same time, to be ready to see which are the issues that may create risks. So as you see, we are working on many, many topics. There are many more. I tried to mention the ones I'm also involved directly, and giving you an idea of the work that we are doing in these months that are very much occupied by this negotiation on the budget and on the Next Generation EU and the connected issues. But also, as I try to explain, we are starting a work on the priorities that were already there before the COVID, so the ecological transition, the digital files, and we are working at full speed. I have to say that the Parliament is well equipped to work at a distance. We are using physical meetings with a lot of distancing and online meetings with some degree of efficiency, and that's good, because this allows us to continue working for the need of, I mean, to take the right decisions that are needed for our citizens and societies. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Brando. That was like a ton of information there. I know many of the people who are in the room here, and I know that many of them, you know, understand, know kind of what the main structure of what you're talking about there. You know, I think there's so many pieces to pick up on. Just trying to think about where I want to go first, because all of I mean, I've written down that there's 5 areas that you touched on there, and each of them would have like a massive impact on the public library sector, you know, in very, very different ways. Hannelore from Cologne has put in a question about the budget for these issues going forward. And Hannah, we talked in the session before also about the COVID recovery package that the Parliament have voted through, and what the digital priorities, what some of the digital priorities that were there, and what's being decided at European and at national level. Has anybody got other burning questions before I dive in with a couple of my own? Was there something you didn't understand, or was there something that really jumped out to you in terms of what Brando said first? Just looking at people's faces. No? Okay, great. Put it in the chat. I'd like to just ask a couple of sort of really practical questions. You talked about ESF Plus. That's something that many public library organizations have been looking at for quite some time. And I guess you know how difficult it is to access social fund funds. And that's a real problem for public library services that are big or small. And then I was kind of slightly ironically laughing when I saw the reform of the ESF Plus program that involved 80 amendments to the program. So is that something you're working on to make access to the funding simpler?
Yeah, that's obviously a very important point. Yes, we are working on that. That must be, I mean, that's very important from the Parliament side. Otherwise, we are talking about things that will not get into reality. They will only stay as a theoretical.
Can you remind people, what's the European annual budget for ESF Plus, roughly? It's like 10%?
Obviously, I mean, I can tell you about the previous period. It would be around like more than 15 billion each year. Yeah.
So, you know, it's part of what used to be known as the structural funds chunk of the EU budget, and it's
really one of them. There is also the European Regional Development Fund that is obviously very important.
Exactly.
Which has been used also to restructure libraries in some territories.
It's just finding out how to access that finance is just been so challenging for so many of us, you know, and it's just,
to be honest, sometimes it's been also national and managing authorities' decisions. It's not really, they say it's Europe, but it's not. Sometimes they are the ones complicating, to be frank.
Yeah. Marie asked a question whether libraries are specifically mentioned as eligible actors in ESF Plus, or is it not necessary to do that?
I didn't understand.
Are libraries explicitly mentioned in the ESF Plus programs? Do you know?
The word libraries, if I remember correctly, I don't think it's mentioned directly, but for sure they are part of what they can access many of the programs. And in general, we are trying to enlarge and flexibilize and making it easier for institutions like the libraries to participate.
Okay. I think
I can give also more specific information if there are specific queries by email, so that because some of them might be very technical, so it might be better to also send some documentation if it would be.
Yeah, and we could share that. Just tell us, in terms of the process for ESF Plus, is it done? Is it final? Can anything be changed? Is it adopted now? Is it just for the budget now?
Sorry? There was a tell me.
Okay, is it just the budget now that has to be adopted for ESF Plus, or are all the terms, is everything decided?
No, we are still negotiating also on the functioning, on the text, on the regulation.
So can I lobby you to get libraries in the text then?
Yeah, but I don't think it's needed. I will show you that it's fine.
Okay,
it depends on what then is being done by the national authorities also.
Okay, we love to see it when somebody says public institutions, for example, public libraries, and then we'd just be super happy.
No, I would be very happy. I don't think the council will allow for that, because if you get too specific, they
okay, we can also lobby the council as well. Don't worry, we can do that.
I would support for sure.
Fantastic. We're definitely going to, I mean, the European Association for Public Libraries, IBLIDA, the president's on the call here today, and it's been a real focus to understand better ESF and make it available for public libraries. So you'll definitely hear from us and from them on that one. I think I'm not going to dive into digital services. I think that there'll be public library groups that are really going to be following that very, very closely. From a sort of personal and an emotional point of view, I think we're really happy to see the EU taking a lead in terms of ethical and responsibilities around platforms. And I know that, it's just really interesting to see what's coming out from there. And it's really good to know that we can come to you from that one. And for those of you who don't know, Brando is really on the right committee for this one. So, that's something that you're going to be seeing very, very closely for the public libraries that are involved in intellectual property. Obviously we've been very active on the IP stuff. And I would say the same with artificial intelligence. And that might be a question to go in, and this kind of fits in with what Marie's asking here as well. I wanted to ask you if there are specific opportunities for next year where we might contribute. Are there going to be any hearings in the committees or delegations that you're involved with?
For sure, I think that
really interesting for us.
For sure, working with on the AI issues, I think it will be very important to involve libraries in this discussion. What kind of usage of artificial intelligence will be important for libraries? I think that we will need to involve you for that, for sure.
Okay. And you don't, but there's no schedule yet in terms of hearing.
No, it has just started. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I mean, I think we'll be sort of staying in touch with you. In terms of what we could do with MEP library lovers, it's been really sad for us this year that we couldn't have Generation Code in the Parliament. We couldn't, like you've been able to really form a relationship with a lot of the Italian librarians through this group, and it's been a real way to, and that's been the case.
Yeah, and also as you asked for the ESF Plus, I mean, it's not so crucial that the libraries are mentioned, but that the librarians learn how to use the programs. For example, I had the occasion to work with some in Italy for programs relating to digital literacy, to skills, also with the youth groups. I think it's what we are trying to do again is to make it easier for local organizations to participate. Then it's important that the national and regional authorities do their job well, which is not always like that. I know perfectly, for example, in my country, which regional authorities have been using the ESF Plus for innovation and for projects like this, and others that didn't, and just did some training that was not really even training for the needed training for people.
Yeah. I think it's a massive opportunity area for public libraries next year. When could be, what would be one really fantastic opportunity that we could have to bring members of the Parliament and the public libraries together next year? What could be something that could really bring alive the MEP Library Lovers group, or help to inform the MEPs better about what public libraries are doing? I don't know, what would be one thing that we haven't done yet that we could do differently, or what would you like to see? COVID, not COVID.
Yeah, well, I think it's always important to come and see the European institutions and meet directly and understand what is happening, what is the European Parliament, which is not only a place for legislation, but for meeting and debate. So this is very important, but we cannot do it now. What I think is important is that we have occasions to exchange best practices on what is being done with European funds and with the new technologies that are at the center of the discussions today at the level of the institutions, so that we can learn from each other, knowing what's being done in the various countries and by the various institutions. It's useful for us, it's useful for the European Commission, it's useful that and also for the participants to learn from each other. I really believe it's always very useful to have exchange that brings the different experiences together.
It's easy with you. What's the argument to get a member of European Parliament into a public library who never visited one?
Well, I don't know, to be honest, in the sense that if they want to I mean, I don't know, in the sense that it's up to you, in fact, to understand how to involve them more, and because to be honest, they have very different stimuli. They get a lot of different interest on the table. If you think it's very important that there is more attention for your sector, you need to be able to present it. I do my part, being a part of the library lovers. We do a lot of sensibilization on the topic with our colleagues. But I think it's important that you come with new ideas also. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's been one of the functions of Generation Code, and that's been,
I think that's one in fact one direction, and also one project that I can say has been able, thanks to the efforts also of public libraries, to engage more. It's my case. I got engaged more through that.
I guess I'm feeling that we don't know when or how, but hopefully there'll be a really fantastic moment when we can be back again in the European Parliament in numbers and, have these kind of meeting moments again, and, finding that balance between, the local and really strong local connections that happen between public librarian and the MEP from their region, and then something that's a bit more big scale and sort of global. Do you feel like the perception of public libraries has changed in the European Parliament over the last 10 years?
Well, last 10 years, I have no idea. I came 6 years ago.
6 years ago. So in your time, I mean, and you're young as well, but when we started, so many MEPs said, oh, does anybody go to libraries anymore? We don't need them.
I agree. I think you touched the right point. There is a lack of understanding and of knowledge, in fact, of what is the reality today of libraries.
Still?
I think it is like that still to some extent, but it's for sure less than before. Also, thanks to the work that has been done, for sure, it's different. I think especially on this aspect of the sharing of knowledge, of cultural products, of accessibility of them, the work also on inclusion, for example, on disability. I think that there are different strands that has brought attention and more understanding, more consciousness of the role of public libraries. I think things have changed.
We've never done a sort of formal perception study. I feel I hear that less now, but it's still definitely a challenge.
But it's less than before, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that. I want to open up if there's anybody else who wants to say anything before Brando has to go. We certainly want to thank you for your work, Brando, because it's really helpful to us. Anything else from anybody? I've asked a lot of questions. We're really looking forward to seeing you. And if for those of you who have not caught Brando's book recommendations, they were really smoking hot this year.
Thank you.
Or even though I have to say they were quite dystopian. You like to read quite a lot of
the time we are living in.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I had one final killer question for you, Brando. Could we ever imagine having a specific action or funding program directed towards public libraries from the EU?
I think this should be done. I think it should be done, and this means that because where can this happen? In my opinion, the way is that when we have the conference on the future of Europe, that will be done the next year, we should push, as we are doing as Parliament, but we need civil society and organizations on the ground to push for more competence on cultural institutions also at European level, which is today limited. Because in this way, I think we can strengthen also the budgetary support for institutions that deliver culture like public libraries. Because today it's conceived as very ancillary, complementary, which is okay, but it should be strengthened. And I think that we will need to use the moment of debate that will be there from the next months on to push for this stronger cultural dimension of Europe, which is today still from the institutional and political side limited, while, as we know, from a societal point of view, is in fact the thing that unites the Europeans much more than all these institutional things.
Okay, well, you know, I think everybody, you know, we'd be so interested to see how that can work practically. If that's, I'm interested that you're talking about conference on future of Europe as well. We've talked about that quite a lot in our group. I understand that's due to kind of kick off at the end of this year. Is that so?
Yeah. We are hopeful that this will happen. We know that we are almost there to finally start it. COVID has postponed everything. But it might have been better to wait and be more prepared, to be frank. So, yeah.
Okay. Listen, I'm going to ask team to unmute everybody. Can you do that? Okay, I want you all to unmute yourselves and say thank you very much and give Brando a round of applause.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Grazie mille.
Grazie.
Hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
I think there is a link about the national program. I will look at that on this from the Swedish government.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Grazie.